Welcome to Happy Recruiting, a podcast by Teamtailor, where we take a deep dive into recruitment and talent acquisition. I'm Lisa, heading up the HR team and also your host. And in every episode, you'll get the chance to join me to meet and listen in to some of the brightest people in the industry as they share their stories and insights. So whether you're a seasoned recruiter, an HR professional, or someone looking to break into the field, you'll be sure to find valuable knowledge and practical tips to take back to your own recruitment. Hi, and welcome to the Happy Recruiting podcast. My name is Lisa, and today's topic is about the perspectives of internal versus, maybe not versus, but compared to external recruiting. Mm-hmm. Joined by two guests here today, Sofia Broberger and Jaimee Watson-Helm. So great to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Jaimee, you are a global talent lead and HR business partner.
It's a mouthful, it's okay.
Yeah. Yes, it's okay. At Axel Arigato.
Mm-hmm.
And Sofia, a freelance recruitment consultant and sourcing trainer. So really looking forward to having both your perspectives here with us today. Mm-hmm. I mean, Sofia, you've been working a lot with hiring and having both the perspective of internal and external, and now running your own company. And Jaimee, in your global recruiting experience, you also had the perspective of internal recruitment. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking forward to hearing your both perspectives. But before we move on to that, and I let you introduce yourselves more, there's a really interesting story, Jaimee, about how you got into recruiting from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I'll try to make a little bit of a long story a little shorter, because it could be longer, depending how much time we have. But basically, when it was 2009, I was living in Shanghai, China, and I had a job there teaching English, as one does when you're 24. And it was kind of not a good job, not a good fit, my initial school. So I went to a big building, and I was in this sitting room waiting for an interview. And in that sitting room, I just started meeting all these people, and I could hear all their accents. They were from Australia, they were from Canada, they were from South Africa, all these native English speakers, Ireland, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I'm meeting all these people that I had never met, and they're all in one room together. Interesting. And then I got called in to my interview, and at the end of the interview, the recruiter, she asked, okay, well, do you have any questions for me? And I said, yeah, well, like, what is your title? What do you do? Because I want your job. I want to do this. And she was like, you want my job? And I was like, yeah. And she said, okay, listen, just come and teach with us for 6 months. I'll call you right before I leave, because I am leaving, going back home. And let's see. So I got a call 6 months later. I came in for that interview, and I did get the job. So I ended up replacing my recruiter, which was really odd, but really fun. And yeah, ever since then, I've been in recruitment and working with people, and now, of course, tapping more into the HR side. But I've always loved... For me, the best part about being in HR and the best part about recruitment is meeting people, hearing their stories. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow. I love that story. It's so nice. You wanted to meet the people. You saw someone who did it without knowing what it was. But, I mean, amazing. Thanks for sharing.
Good to ask sometimes.
Exactly. It is. And Sofia, you have a slightly different story, and it's related to pottery. Do you want to share?
So outside of recruitment, which is partly why I freelance and do my thing, is now I do a lot of pottery. And funnily enough, as you can see, if you're watching this, I have a gigantic black eye, because I was at the studio doing my pottery, and I was going to leave the studio to go for lunch with a friend. And unfortunately, the glass door that's usually open was closed, and I walked straight into it. So addressing the elephant in the room, which is my black eye, that's how I got it.
Oh, good. Okay. But thanks for sharing the story, and hopefully
this is great for the episode. Everyone's going to turn on the camera now and watch us.
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent marketing.
Exactly. And hope next time you go to pottery that it won't happen again. Amazing. And I just did a short introduction of your roles. Is there anything you want to add, Jaimee, at Axel Arigato?
I mean, for me, I've always worked in-house. So I started in education, obviously, like I just talked about. And then I worked with Volvo Cars, so working in mobility and cars. And now I'm in the fashion industry, but always from an in-house perspective.
Amazing. You, Sofia?
Yeah, I fell into recruitment just like you, and I think a lot of recruiters tend to do that. Started with agency recruitment, went on to in-house, and then starting my own business where I kind of am external, internal. I'm internal, but I'm not employed. So I've worked with all aspects of hiring.
Amazing. Thank you. Looking forward to our conversation here. And I mean, let's, again, as I said in the beginning, it doesn't mean here that we are finding the best option to see that it's better with the external or the internal and so on, but more to get the perspective on how to collaborate and I guess get the most out of whichever option you choose. So I'm happy to hear your thoughts. Sofia, what do you say? What should one use, internal or external recruiting?
I'd say from the company perspective, it depends on where you're at. If you're only just hiring the one person a year, obviously you don't need an internal recruiter. You're fine using the external help. But as soon as you start hiring at a higher rate or a few more, I think you should look into getting an internal recruiter, because they can help you with not only hiring the right people, but also setting the processes and helping out with the company in general, building a culture and help you really build the company. So it depends on where you're at and how much hiring you're doing.
Depending on what phase, kind of
exactly
where you're at. What do you think, Jaimee?
I mean, I agree, but it all depends, like, how mature organization are you? Do you have a people plan? Do you have a budget? I think if you have one of those two, then you can definitely go for an in-house. After you have an in-house, though, it doesn't mean you should only rely on that in-house person. I can say for myself, I'm an in-house now, but I still definitely use headhunters or freelancers when I have a very niche role, or when I have a role that I just know that myself I don't have that community, I don't have the connections, I don't even know where to start, and then I find a good external person to help me. So I think in the dream world you can hopefully have access to both and know when to use either one.
Exactly.
So it doesn't always have to be one or the other.
No.
There can be different perspectives. And any examples of your previous roles, any journeys maybe that you made when, like, how do you know when that shift is coming? Like, oops, we mentioned the company might be growing and so on, but how do you know? When do you make that shift to go internal?
From my perspective, obviously, I've never really been at the company when they make that shift. But I come in as an internal recruiter and help them out. My most recent client was a small company called Intricity. And when I started, they were only 4 people. They had used like external recruiters, but didn't quite get the traction and the help they needed. So they had somebody, or they still have somebody on the board that I know that worked in recruitment that kind of suggested they should have an internal recruiter. And that's how I came in, and I helped them grow to 12 people within the 5 months I was there. And I think it's easier for when you know the company, you can get to know them, and you can kind of really, personally, from my perspective, I prefer when I can truly represent the company I'm helping, whether I'm internal or external. I think that's the slight shift and the slight change that happens with the external. They don't really fully know what they're recruiting for. They understand the kind of requirements. Yes, they have to have, I don't know, if a developer, they've got to know Java or JavaScript. They have to have knowledge of this system or that system. But they don't always fully understand the full, those other things that you can't necessarily pinpoint, or you can't, it's like, who fits here, what we're looking for, what kind of vibe do we have? I think that's where the difference comes in between external and internal slightly.
I always compare it to, I don't know, if you have a child or something, and if they're either going to school, or maybe they're going to go to their soccer practice. You know, you've done all the research you can. You know that to go to soccer, they need shoes, they need a vest, they should have a water bottle. But then you drop them off and you leave. And to be honest, we will never know exactly what it is they're doing after that, but the coaches know. So for me, it's like that handover. You know, in the best circumstances, you have this really good understanding with the externals, like how to have that handover. And whatever they have told the candidate before, when they come and they're dropped over to me, the coach, and that's the company, it shouldn't be vastly different. It shouldn't be a surprise. You shouldn't want a recruitment consultant who's just trying to fill a number, because then that person will leave. So it really is this, like, collaboration is key. Honesty is key.
Regardless of
if you're in-house or external. And like, a good internal recruiter knows the company well. They know the structure. They know the pitfalls of that company. They know what's going to happen in the future. They need to be much more curious. And yeah, that's, I would say, if you're hiring every one of those, look for those things. Yeah.
No, exactly. And I mean, in your experience or how we've had to adapt, maybe Sofia as well, is there any difference in how then you approach? You mentioned, I mean, you have to be curious and so on.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I don't know, skills or personality, is there any difference in being external?
I'd say if you do a big like generalization, I think, or the general kind of perception is that external recruiter has a little bit more of a sales edge to them because they're used to having to, find the assignment and fill the positions. And personally, I started as an external recruiter and I have a background in sales before I started in recruitment. So I do see that aspect when it comes to the sourcing, the reaching out, that you have that little kind of drive to fill a position. But at the same time, that can sometimes go overhand, that it goes a little bit too salesy, that they're exaggerating about the position and how great the company is and don't show, but they're also this aspect of the company that isn't that great that they need. So, but sometimes then if you generalize the internal recruiter, maybe don't have that sales aspect too much to kind of not necessarily as switched on or as experienced when it comes to sourcing. Of course, nowadays, I don't think there is that big a distinction. And of course, there's going to be differences between individuals and people as well. But I think that's the kind of general seen as external are more salesy and sales-driven than the internal recruiter is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it took me maybe 4 or 5 years to be more of that. Then I learned a bit of headhunting. I learned, LinkedIn recruiter. I learned to look outside of LinkedIn and, attend conferences and look at speaker lists. And then that's how I found them and I called them. And that's how I headhunted these like really niche roles that I got to head. And I love headhunting. But it is definitely like the sales, but you don't want to give the ick. You're right. It's the ick factor. You don't want to give that away. So I think it is this really, really tricky balance. But I always say recruitment is sales. You have to have enough to talk about. Recruitment is sales. Any recruiter is an amazing salesperson. So you should not get rid of them. If you have them in your company, you can always pivot because they've had to talk. If you talk about one position, they probably talk to a minimum of 10 people, maybe 5 to 10, depending on the company. And what do you think they've talked about with those 10 people? Yeah, it's sales.
Yeah, exactly.
The initial,
it is sales.
The initial bit is sales.
That's true.
And then it's analysis. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think the thing you have to look at. We mentioned it before. The collaboration is the collaboration. If you're an internal recruiter and you want to collaborate with external recruiters, or if you're an external recruiter, you've got to want to collaborate with the internal recruiter. You're not in competition with each other. I mean, when I've collaborated with kind of bad external recruiters, I've said there's a little bit like they're throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. They're just throwing people at you, seeing if you will accept one of them rather than trying to work with me and find out what I'm actually looking for and what kind of role. I'd rather have the external recruitment send me one awesome person than 10 that isn't a fit. And I know, Jaimee, that you've worked with this. You have a great way of collaborating with those external recruiters. Yeah,
I really got to do this in my most recent role since I got to pick all my processes and all my teams and all my partners. I had the privilege of being in control, which was nice. And I found, and I've done this now several times, is that I just take the time. Of course, I meet lots of agencies and freelancers. Then I see, of course, the vibe. Do we actually understand each other? Are they picking up at all what I'm talking about? And then I take the time with them from the beginning. I say, okay, I'm signing with you. We've signed our SLA. We both know what we need from each other. But now can you come in for 4 hours a day? Can we meet a couple of times at lunch? Come in and have a coffee in the lunch space. Listen to what people are talking about. Like, how do they interact? What's the actual feeling of I know that some of my past colleagues, they've only met agencies at the agency. And the agency had never been to the office.
To the exercise.
And that blows my mind because how will you ever know what it's actually like? Yeah. So I think for me, those 4 hours that day is time so well spent because then they kind of know in their brain when they start sending me people, they know who won't fit in or who won't feel comfortable. And they also know vice versa, who if they sent one that I wouldn't like, or it's the balancing game. So I always, if you have the time, take the time, block out your calendars, bring them there. If you can get them in on that team meeting, even I've had them attend some of my managers' like department meetings, so they see how they're talking to each other, what are the future goals, and I think it's really beneficial for the longevity of your process and being able to deliver a candidate that's on brand and going to add to the role.
To avoid that spaghetti.
Yeah,
exactly. No more spaghetti. But I love that. I must admit, I haven't, when I've worked with externals, most of the time I've kind of inherited them. I haven't picked them myself, but I love that process because it reminds me when I was working at an agency, and my favorite client ever, who I'm now 10 years later kind of still in touch with.
Yeah.
That was the easiest position to fill because I got to know the company. I got to know the founders. I got the vibe. I've been to the office. I felt the vibe. And I remember describing, kind of trying to persuade the people into going to an interview with this company. I described it, that they're awesome. It's like this. And then catching up after the interview they had, they were like, everything you said was true. It's an awesome vibe. They're lovely. And it's like I could genuinely represent them. And now running my own business, I only ever work with clients I feel I can truly represent, so that I don't try to, fit a square peg in a round hole kind of thing. It's like I really got to feel like they're awesome and I believe it. I don't have to lie, or make things up. I want to truly, genuinely feel I can represent them. So from the external side, that's the kind of way I'd want to be treated from the internal side as well. But I just now got to thinking to another thing. Actually, with I remember once, and I think you talked about the service level agreement and going on with that. I think that's also important because I remember once when I was recruiting, I was recruiting another recruiter and I didn't have time, so I asked for external help, and it ended up being, my kind of expectation was to be given good candidates, and then I took after the process. Because for me, candidate experience is really important. So I follow up after the interviews. I follow up. I do feedback. I do all that. But then also this external recruiter was doing the same thing. So this poor person who came in for interviews got the call from me asking how the interview was, and got the call from the external recruiter asking how the interview was. Me following up, booking things. They following up, asking things. And I'm like, all I want from you as an external person is to feed me candidates, and then I look after them. So I wasn't clear enough with that external partner that's what I wanted from them, that I knew how to look after the candidate from that. And also this external partner even had scheduled, once this person started with us, had scheduled a follow-up call with them like a month or two after they started. And the recruiter that I hired was like, why am I having a follow-up call with this external recruiter firm? If I don't like it here, what are they going to do about it? It's not like they didn't get it. So I think you have to be clear with what you are expecting from your external partner and what you don't want them to do, not just expectations, because I can understand from their point of view, they want to follow up, they want to do the job because they're probably experienced working with internal recruiters who don't do the same type of follow-up, who aren't that, into the candidate experience perhaps. So I think you have to be really clear on what you expect from them and what you don't want them to do either.
I really like, though, the follow-up with the really high-level ones when they're going to take over, for example, a region, like an MD role or a GM role. I really appreciated them because what I've done is I have talked to that recruiter before and maybe highlighted some pain points that we're having with that candidate that started a month or two ago, like this is not going so well, but this candidate well because they were in your database. Can you have kind of an, off the record, kind of like a psychological coach chat with them and tell them they need to like kind of snap into it or why they're not performing, and then I would call them back. So I can say there's two people I have top of mind that I've hired multiple MD and GM levels, and it's really helped that person actually stay. Because maybe they took it as it wasn't a personal feedback from
you. Or,
it's like an actual as their friend kind of or mentor who helped them get this role. And I have really appreciated those like follow-ups. But also, of course, they want them to stay because if they left, they'd have to replace the candidate for free.
So it's a win-win.
So of course, not maybe with, I think anyone who's not a people manager, I give them to me. I can handle it. I don't know when I've used a headhunter for that recently, but definitely for people manager roles, like for me, it's all about psychological safety, and any way you can create that, I think, is like brilliant. But yes, you need to have it in your process, and yes, it needs to be in the SLA.
And I think, I mean, what you mentioned just now, the other way around, I mean, what I heard you say was that the agency was doing a lot that you already had in mind. And I think that the other way around from experience as well, when you expect an agency to maybe follow up for some reason and they don't. So I think it's definitely, as you say, I mean, the collaboration and then agreement, okay, you're doing this part service for us, I'm doing this, because I mean, in the end, as you said, Sofia, it's the candidate experience.
Exactly.
That's what we want. We want successful hiring and just a great match.
So I think that's the thing. As an external, you can be clear about saying, this is what we usually do for our clients. We offer this, we offer the follow-up, or we don't do that. Do you want us to do that for you? Or is that something that you want to do? So you can, as an external, you can also be clear about what it is that you're offering, what can be removed, kind of as a bit of a jigsaw puzzle going pieces. I'll do this. And again, it's the collaboration. I think that's when it works the best, when you're working together to fill the position, not kind of in competition with each other.
No, exactly. I mean, it's not one or
And my other top tip here that I found, I learned this recently, actually, because before maybe in other companies, the recruiter I had a decision piece. If I said absolutely no, I had kind of a veto power, especially on headhunting cases, but not at my recent role, since it's a founder-led brand. They are very much in control, and I appreciate that. But maybe when the first time I started headhunting, I didn't include the right stakeholders early enough in the process. You know, I thought I gave them 3 amazing, final candidates that we had vetted and la. But then when they met on Zoom, it was, silent or awkward, or that person kind of started bragging about themselves, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? So I had to. I remember changing that process midway through. So I think that was definitely a learning point for me with those really high level ones, where they're not going to talk to me, right? When they start, well, I'll probably never meet them again. They're going to meet the CEO. They're going to meet the MD. So put that person as early as they feel comfortable in you and with their time in mind in the process. It can be a 20-minute coffee, like virtual coffee. Put them in as soon as you can to make sure there is that connection, so you don't waste a lot of other stakeholders' time. So for me, that was a big learning, especially with the founder-led company. It's very personal, it's very different.
Definitely, it's a bit like a baby.
Yeah, and so I learned that.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. Like external, when I was I didn't have the same kind of collaboration with the hiring managers. Like now, I'm like I'm training the hiring manager. I'm telling them what to do. I'm telling them what processes to follow and how to do things. And I'm, making sure they follow up. I have the access to their calendars, kind of thing. As an external, you don't have that. So it's the same kind of, okay, when can you do the interview? Trying to schedule this. Now I just put it in the calendar. Yes. If it's an open slot, you're getting an interview. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. It's great. It's great.
If you don't want me to put an interview in there, block your calendar.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly. Like, is your calendar updated? Maybe you should do that.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it isn't, but they'll learn.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's that kind of having that access and having that, being able to kind of work together with the hiring manager. Again, I think that's that word, collaborating with the external recruitment partner, perhaps, or collaborating with your hiring managers, with the stakeholders, with the whole team that are hiring. And again, it's always, it's that making that assumption that people know what they're doing. And I think that's true in any relationship, any collaboration, what you're doing, recruitment or not recruitment. It's that when you assume somebody, but because they will do it this way because that's the way things are done. Nah. I'm sure Jaimee and I are not doing things exactly the same, even though we're both recruiters working internally. We have different ways of doing things. So you have to really, don't make assumptions, basically.
And based on that, I mean, you just shared one of your learnings.
Yes.
Any other sort of things that you have learned to avoid, or any other processes or something that you've wanted to add?
I think almost the opposite. Instead of avoiding things, it's almost being more inclusive. I'm a very goal-oriented person since I started in high-volume recruitment. I had a goal of hiring like 80 to 100 people a year. It's they kind of just drop you in the deep end, like, good luck, okay. And I just kind of delivered, like, we did, like, I don't even know if this sounds very unmodern when I say it out loud, but they did a thing where every time somebody accepted an offer, you got to, like, ring the bell, and they had the board up, like, who had the most hires, and I always won, just so you know. But but because I started that way, and that's who trained me, I was very self-led, self-going. I'm just going to deliver. And then I've kind of, got out of that with Volvo, and now in Axe, I've kind of undone that learning. It's to more, instead of not involve, it's to involve more. I've kind of learned that I can't just do everything on my own. And I had one of my managers I've hired recently. He told me he learned how to communicate up, and that's a perfect way of describing it to me. Instead of just doing my own stuff and then delivering, I need to, have these checkpoints in my progress, every month with my manager or with my team, and communicate up. Actually, what is it you're doing? Oh, actually, I'm working on these, 15 hires. I'm at this stages are broken up in these pockets. This one's really hard. Do you have any tips? This one's going well. And to rather communicate up and be more open about what's happening. And I think that's also like maturity as well, like realizing it's okay to be not so good at something, and this is not perfect, and this process hasn't worked this time. I wonder why. So for me, I think that's something I'm learning more and more, to communicate up.
And what has it changed? I mean,
it has just changed. I think people, I'm not saying this is a bad thing because now I do HR stuff too, not just recruitment. But recently I have discovered in the past maybe 10 years, especially in Sweden, that a lot of my HR colleagues don't like recruitment. They don't think it's HR, or they don't really want to get involved. And it's a shame, because I think if you got involved more, you would have better fits, you would have better teams, you would have way better leaders, probably because you could recruit from within more. So I think, it has been a learning to get over that boundary, I think, between HR and recruitment, because to me, we're on the same team. In the dream world, you should be talking with them a lot. So that's a big one.
It's a really interesting topic as well.
Yes,
to get into.
I won't get into it.
No, but I mean, it's a good learning as well for that. And I mean, you shared a lot of sort of your learnings and your experiences here already. But anything else that you want to sort of share, Sofia? Anything that you learned either by adding something or removing, or?
No, but I think we were talking a little bit ahead of this podcast. We talked kind of advice on how external, like you almost said, external versus internal. There is a little bit of that, but I think it's a collaboration thing. And I think both me and Jaimee have the experience and the feeling working as an internal recruiter, and external recruiters are trying to get in to help you. And just kind of some external firms have the approach of reaching out to you and basically telling me, they don't say it in that many words, but basically telling me how you suck so I can help you. Kind of reaching out going, hi, I can help you improve your processes. Hi, we can help you hire a lot better. Hi, we can improve things for you. It's like, how do you know that? And my standard reply is like, okay, what insight do you have into our hiring processes so that makes you know how you can improve them? I never ever get a response. But if somebody reaches out to me saying, hi, I'd like a chat with you to see how we can help you. I think that maybe we can help you find these kind of people. I know you're hiring this. Kind of being a bit more humble. Because I obviously, if you're reaching out to me telling me, hey, you're bad at your job, I do your job better, am I ever going to respond? No. Rather than kind of hurting my ego, stroke my ego, saying, you're so awesome, perhaps I can help you a little bit if you have, you might not have too much time to do this. So just kind of, I think the approach as an external recruiter trying to get business is to be a bit more humble.
And as you mentioned in the beginning, like the sales person, but then adapting, I guess, to the messaging.
My only last things I want to say about modern recruiters is I can see sometimes, and I think we all have different reasons why, but I think we should all strive to be more curious, stay more like future proof. I think a lot of people stop developing at a certain age or a certain point in their career, and that's not good for any of us. And to always, like I've done with Sofia in the past, ask for a second opinion. If you have someone you can reach out to, open up, ask someone to get some more insight, some more input, because we should never really be alone all the time. It's the best thing. So those are my
great advice.
3 ones.
Anything you want to add?
No, I agree with that. Keep on learning, keep on being curious. And to be honest, that was partly why I started my own business. My initial thought was, I don't want to be limited in how many conferences I can go to. I don't want to be limited in how many training sessions, how many workshops I'm allowed to go to. If I want to go to a conference a week, I want to be allowed to. And most employers don't let you do that. So I started my own business to be able to just go and learn as much as I possibly can. And again, learning from others, like I said, me and Jaimee are probably going to do things different ways. There's so much I can learn from her, and vice versa. I can learn from anyone who's been in recruitment like 3 months. There's always something I can learn from somebody. So just talking and listening and learning from each other. Internal and external learning from each other as well.
We're not versus, we're and.
Exactly, exactly.
Plus.
If you decide then to go with an external recruiter or an external partner, what is your best advice? How do you pick which one to work with?
Okay, number one is don't rely on the same one for every role. I mean, there are some very big recruitment companies. I guess I won't name drop them, but just because they've been good at one role does not mean they're going to be good at another role you pick. So take a look at what they've been successful at. Ask them questions when you're talking to them, like, you know, if I'm going to hire these kind of profiles, what have you worked with before? Meet as many as you want, not can, because that's a waste of time. Do your research. I always look like, you know, fashion leaders in Europe, and then I find which recruitment companies. And then I look at what's interesting. Where are they located? Are they near one of my HQs so that somebody can meet them in person, or I can fly to meet them in person? Before I meet them, I ask for their, you know, TNCs. What kind of like process do they map out? And then I always try to meet at least like 3. And like right now, recently, I have only used 2 companies for the past 2.5 years. That's because one is very niche in back of office roles, and one was amazing with leadership roles within fashion and global. So I met 3 of their colleagues for 3 different locations, and they were really helpful. So for me, it is like take the time, do the research, meet them in person if you can, at least at the end before you sign, because that also tells a lot. Do they actually spend the time with you? Because I want them to. I want them to almost be, my partner for the next 6 months.
Absolutely.
Because I want them to text me. I want them to follow me on Instagram. I don't care. Whatever they need to get insight as to how we want to be, that's what I want. And if this is my best one, and this is also with candidates, so maybe this is a double tip.
Go ahead.
If they don't ask you any questions at the end about the company, about the vision, about the mission, about the values, it's not the one. It's not the one for me. Because if they didn't ask it from me, the person choosing and has the budget to assign them, they're not going to be curious about my candidate's values and mission and vision and value. So those are that's a no-brainer. I will never assign them, sorry.
That's a lot of great advice there.
Maybe it was
and
a lot,
as you said, I mean, you can hire for a lot of different roles, and you might have a great partner who specializes in tech, but it doesn't mean that sales roles will be
have a great one
match.
For Sweden. If you want to hire some back office roles, come to me. I'll hook you up.
Great learning. Sofia, anything to add?
Well, I'm going to go into more the kind of sourcing specific side. Being from hiring developers, doing a lot of sourcing and sourcing training myself, to me it's important if I'm going to hire an external partner who's going to source for me, I want to know how they do it. I want to know that they know there's more to sourcing than LinkedIn and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to ask them how they do it. And then I'm going to ask them how do they approach potential candidates. Because to me, it's more about quality rather than quantity. So if they're a spray and pray kind of company that are going to, reach out to hundreds and give me 10, I don't care. I don't want them. I'd rather them reach out to 10 people and do it in a good, personalized manner. So I think I'd actually want examples of how they reach out. Because once I was working with an external partner and they were reaching out going, now we've reached out to 100, now we've reached out to 300, as if that was a good thing, as if that was like, oh yeah, you're a great partner, now they've reached out to 500, now you're ruining our brand by just randomly approaching people that aren't interested. So I would really look at where do you source people, how do you do and how do you approach them? Are they a quality or quantity type sourcing people? So that would be really an important aspect for me.
So what I hear is kind of relationship building and interest and a lot of research to really understand ways of working and how to approach. Any just last piece of advice? I don't know if you have any podcast you listen to or any people you follow. Jaimee, where do you get your inspiration?
I'm on like all these random. I mean, I think everyone follows this guy Hung Lee.
Yeah,
he's very prolific. Like he has a lot of information. For me, I like to. I think it's interesting what he has. I think you have more. I think you're better at following.
Well, Hung's my friend as well. So.
Is he?
Yeah, of course he is.
Man, I love having cool HR friends.
Yeah, no, but I think what I love about, that's always my go-to recommendation as well with Hung's newsletter is because he gathers all the interesting articles into one newsletter. So you don't have to scour the world for all of it. That it's all, one-stop shop.
Yes.
Also, have you seen like punk rock HR? It's a little bit interesting more from the HR perspective. That's quite interesting sometimes as well. and go to as many conferences as you can, even if they're random, even if they're like, just go.
Learn something new.
Can.
Get
Yeah,
inspiration.
meet people, network. Yeah.
Go to conferences. Oh,
Yes,
there we
we're
go.
back now after
Conferences.
Corona.
Exactly. Conferences, podcasts.
Sourcing Summit
You
is
said
my
it.
favorite conference
Sourcing
there is.
Summit.
It's going to be in Amsterdam in October.
Yeah, I saw that.
Hopefully I get to go.
Yes.
So,
You decide.
yes, I do decide.
I need a sponsor. If anyone
Yeah, but
wants a sponsor.
conferences, I think any conference, that's really where like it's amazing. Conferences.
Well,
are
and
the
even
best.
if they're
well.
but even if they're about the business, I go to conferences that are just about my business. I've been to a Business of Fashion Summit now for Axel.
Yeah,
when I
that can
worked for
also be.
cars, I went to like the automotive shows. Whatever you can do if you know the business and like understand them more will help you in your
that will
job
also-
more. It doesn't have to be about
Yes.
HR.
No.
recruitment.
Exactly.
I think that's also
Amazing.
kind of expanding your horizons in that sense, and not just learning from HR and recruitment, but learning from anything really.
Maybe the industry.
Like the one they have in Stockholm every year.
Women in
Female
Tech.
Tech is so
yes,
good.
Exactly. Another amazing advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for so much to hear and learn. And I think that what I heard you say here in the end, I mean, it's not external versus external or internal. It's internal and external, right?
Exactly.
So thank you so much for joining us here today and sharing your insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
That wraps up today's episode of Happy Recruiting. We hope that you enjoyed our conversation and found some valuable insights to take back to your own recruiting efforts. So until next time, stay positive, stay inspired, and happy recruiting.